Impossible. That is the word that I would have used to describe the expectations of extracurriculars in the college application process. It's not good enough just to be a good person with good grades, but you also have to have impressive extracurriculars too. There's barely enough time in the day to complete 5 AP classes and 2 college courses worth of homework, and now I have to do extracurriculars as well? As a middle school student staring at this impossibility, I felt overwhelmed. College admissions will say, we take into consideration your situation and that you have a lot of responsibilities to take care of with your homework and your extracurriculars, and we know it's hard. This may be in part true. The people that we hear about are the ones who've won a national science Olympiad or are going to the Olympics. Although I've been indoctrinated through hours of watching superhero content growing up, I'm no secret Kryptonian. I'm not Superman. I'm nothing but a man. So how could college admissions expect me to do the impossible just to make my way into college? But that's just it. A mindset of impossibility is a foundation to an insurmountable reality. Although this mindset is perfectly reasonable, it's not the mindset that you need to get to the perfect college or just to succeed in many of your goals in life. So today, I'm not going to give you the cookie cutter formula for the perfect extracurriculars for college, but rather all I can do is just tell you what I did and some of my thoughts. I'm no admissions officer, so I don't know the inside scoop, but I'm just a guy who made it into some great colleges in the hardest application cycle yet. So maybe somebody will find my thoughts a little bit informative and may help them in their own process. If you came here just to look at my extracurricular activities, I'll display them right over here. You may notice a common theme among my extracurriculars. I try to keep many of the things similar, but I'm also a very well-rounded student. Maybe that gave me an edge in the application process. Not many people may have done the combination of things that I've done, and that uniqueness makes me stand out as an applicant. However, I think it's always hard just to look at someone's extracurriculars or statistics or essays and figure out what I should do. So I'll give you a couple of my tips that I think helped me figure out what I was going to put down my application, since there's only a limited amount of extracurriculars, and maybe will help some of you who are just going into high school. In my opinion, I think extracurriculars could be easily broken down into 3 separate parts. The first one is an apex. Now think about a mountain. The most influential part of the mountain is its apex, its peak, its summit. And that should be the same thing as your extracurriculars. You should have something that peaks at the top, something that you really push forward and is part of your personality, identity, and something that you truly love to do. Something that you are passionate about. Colleges want to know that you can be passionate about something because this can be extrapolated into your studies in college. Supposedly, if you are studying something in college, this will be your future career, and therefore you're probably going to be passionate about what you're doing. If you can show that when you're passionate about something, you put a lot of effort in and you're putting a lot of time, that makes you a good student and overall a very good applicant for the admissions process. What this means for colleges is that they'll more easily be able to produce a future career person who is going to be very good at what they do. People who aren't very passionate about something aren't going to put as much time and effort into the field that they're studying, and therefore they won't come out learning as much as they could. As for me, I've been playing saxophone since I've been in 3rd grade. That allowed me to have many opportunities throughout my time in high school. I was able to play in many bands, and that became a huge part of my life. In general, I think that it's important to find something that you're passionate about in high school, whether it's for the college application process or just for your own sanity. Number 2, I would say, is consistency. Colleges often look at consistency of your extracurriculars to see if you're a good applicant. I want you to imagine you're building a boat. Now, boats are meant to sail. That's why you build. So let's say you start building your boat. You start building it, you get a little bit halfway done, then you get bored. You say, you know what, let me start another boat for my parents. And so you make another boat for your parents, and you get a little bit halfway done, and then you say, you know what, I'm a little bit bored of this, let me make one for my grandparents. And you start building a little bit of that, and then you're like, this is too much, so you go make another one. Eventually, you have a bunch of boats that you've started, but none of them are finished, and none of them can sail. And I think, in a sense, this is how the college admissions process looks at people who jump from extracurricular to extracurricular. Now, I know what you're thinking.
Well, I thought high school was an opportunity to explore my interests and see what I liked and what I didn't like.
Well, on one hand, this is true. High school is a great opportunity to check out different things and see what you might do in the future. However, I always think it's great to have at least one thing that you're very consistent with. I've played in many bands throughout my high school career for at least 2 years or more. I was also an altar server since I was in 5th grade, and I would have played on the varsity tennis team for all 4 years of high school if it weren't for the COVID pandemic. So these three parts of me are three distinctive parts of my personality, and if you take one of them out, it makes me less me. And so having these things that show that I'm passionate about something and work through it and dedicate time to it demonstrates something about your character, shows something that things that you're interested in and some of your personality, and these are all great things to demonstrate why you might be a good applicant. If you're able to show to colleges that when you find something that you're passionate about, as I said before, and stick with it, this means that similarly in college, you're going to be able to choose a career field and stick with it. A person who's going to jump from one thing to another may not be able to get their degree in the end if these are each puzzle pieces that make up the picture of you. And that's what the application really is, just trying to build a picture of who you are that colleges can then say, does this picture fit into our puzzle, which makes an even greater picture, an ecosystem, a community. My third point is variety. Now, I know this one's a little bit contradictory to the other points that I made earlier, that you want to find apex and something that you're passionate about and you're going to spend a lot of time on. However, I wouldn't say that you should not just do anything else. You should always consider doing other things. Now, if we think back to that mountain, the apex is just the summit, but what's the foundation that builds up to that apex part? And those are your other extracurriculars and all the other things that build up to your one pinnacle of your extracurricular activities. By having a variety, it shows that you're a well-rounded person and you're able to do other things outside of just one thing. This makes you a little bit more of an interesting person and a more three-dimensional character. Oftentimes, people who focus on one thing get super focused on that thing and then they become socially isolated and are unable to interact with other people well. I don't think anyone in general wants to be socially isolated, and it doesn't really make a great community. So a person who has a lot of variety and can meet new people in different places is always a great addition to the campus. When I was in 8th grade, I remember I went to one of those admission tours on campus to find out what it took to make it to MIT. And he said that there was one student that he remembers vividly who was a really strong applicant, but when they asked him what he did for fun and what other activities he did, all he listed was multivariable calculus. And he thought this was really strange. The ability to have an escape from your work when it becomes too strenuous is a ability that is extremely valuable in everyday life, and especially in college or in the future workforce. Many people won't have strange combinations. A lot of people who are interested in one thing are logically interested in another thing, but to be a person who's interested in gaming and fitness may be a little bit out of the ordinary, but makes you a more interesting person. When people are reading hundreds of applications each day, a person who is even just a little bit different may stand out and may give you an opportunity to make it to the college that you want. However, I don't want this to be a deterrent from focusing on one thing. If you have a true passion for a sport or a true passion for something academic like math or science or reading, I don't want to say that that takes away from your application. So it's one thing just to do math in school and do it academically, and then at home that's all you do. However, if you can explain to colleges through your essays or some other things that you do that math is more than just a thing that you do to study and become better at school, but rather something that you use to help solve problems in your daily life or to teach you lessons about people or something that is interesting. Maybe you use math to help create algorithms to help your parents' business or anything like that, something that is outside the box. If you are able to apply that one thing you're focused on into multiple areas of your life, that may even show the same diversity and variety that doing many other things can do. But I always say that it's all about passion. My fourth point, even though I said there's only 3, is more of a bonus point, and that's just volunteering. I think that volunteering is always something that's great to do, even outside of the college application process. The ability to help people outside of yourself is something that's always rewarding. I think that you don't even have to go out of your way to volunteer. I think the best volunteering is to use your skills and your abilities to share with a community somehow. If you're good at music or you're good at math or you're good at reading and writing, use that in some way that can help the community. That shows that you're passionate about something but also helps out somebody else. Not many people have the ability to be selfless and empathetic. It's one thing just to play an instrument. It's another thing to help out a community by playing free concerts for senior citizens or to teach children about music. I think if you have a gift, what's the point of just keeping it to yourself? I would highly recommend doing that because it helps you out in your life, it helps other people out, and it could boost your college application process. So just to wrap things up, my final thoughts are that if you're a junior or you're a senior, it's going to be quite difficult for you to change your extracurriculars as it is difficult to change your academics. So my only advice to all of you would just to be stay consistent with everything that you've been doing to show that you are able to have the willpower and the determination to continue on doing what you're doing. Now, if you're a freshman or a sophomore or you're just coming into high school, You're probably wondering what I've learned as a high school graduate. So, was it impossible? And the answer is, it nearly was. I don't like to sugarcoat things, so I just say it how it is. Oftentimes, I would spend nights going to music rehearsals before I could even do my homework. I would have to go out on the weekends to finish all these music competitions, and I had to balance all this out with my college workload and my high school workload, and it was all just a lot of work. However, what I learned was that the things that I noticed the most were actually the things that I hated. The things that I loved, I barely even noticed that I was doing. I'd love to go see my friends at my jazz band rehearsals. I had so much fun playing in the pit band and watching the musical theater events. And the times that were really hard were the ones where I was doing things that I didn't like going to music competitions where the only reason I was doing it was to try and be the best. So my advice to all of you would come down to a quote from Naval Ravikant. "I'm always working. It looks like work to them, but it's like play to me. That is how I know no one can compete with me, because they are going to work and they are going to lose. They are not going to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week." Your extracurriculars should not feel like homework. It should feel like play to you. I had so much fun and it felt so rewarding to play for younger students and teach them about music. But on the other hand, when I was doing things that I hated, like doing music competition, it was very difficult to keep up with the work. For those of you who are just starting high school, don't make the mistake of trying to impress colleges. That will lead you down the wrong rabbit hole. Do what you love, and that will pay off the most. So when you're looking back as a high school graduate, you're going to see all the things you did, and you're going to be impressed at what you had accomplished. Because if you had been working all this time, you're not going to do very much. But when you're doing things that feels like play, you're going to accomplish far more than you expected, and that will inevitably impress colleges. And only then can you make the impossible possible.